Brilliant. Welcome back to another episode of Legal Unicorns. Thank you very much for joining us. For those of you who haven't joined us before, the purpose of the podcast is simple. We are finding people within the African continent that are doing something different within the legal sector. Shine a light on them. Shine a light on them being that unicorn, that special magical creature that is doing something different and bringing a certain humility, a lack of ego to the industry, making it accessible for all, and telling their journey to the listeners, and obviously discussing exactly how they got to where they are today. So, with no further ado, today's guest, I'm delighted to be joined by Mpho Khoele. Did I pronounce that right? Correct.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
That's right.
Who is someone I've been in touch with via the power of LinkedIn. And I've been looking at what she was doing, and I reached out to her and said, would you be interested in being on the podcast? And thankfully she said yes. So welcome, Mpho. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited about this journey.
Brilliant. Excellent.
Yes.
Well, look, as the regular listeners know, the purpose of this is really to find out as much as we can about you and then about your journey, about where you got to. And also then the discussion will break into what's happening with the law. I mean, we were just talking quite avidly off camera about what's happening in the legal space, what's going to happen with the ALS space, the charges that clients are prepared to pay and things like that. And we can get into all of that because this is fascinating stuff. It's stuff that's happening right now live. We're in the middle of a little revolution, right? I mean, with AI and things like that. So I think there's a lot of people out there asking a lot of questions within the legal space, not just students, but CAs or people looking for CAs. And then people are looking for their first job and people are wondering what's going to happen 10 years from now. And then we have a lot of listeners also who are in their 40s and coming into their 50s going, how long have I got left? Am I still relevant? What's going to happen? So we'll get onto all of that. But as a short bio to you, you set up your own firm, right? You're a director of your own firm, Khoele and Associates. It's a consulting company that provides legal services to companies, especially startups, in and around the healthcare sector and health tech, right? What you are known for or known as is what we term an alternative legal service provider, or ALS or ALP or ALSP or whatever. There's a lot of different things that people call it. So you aim to be kind of a plug and play for the clients, which is fantastic. This model's, as you see, is working really well for companies that don't have an in-house team, or as a plug into the in-house team. But it is an area that is growing, and as I just said to you off camera, from our research, this year it's the area of law that's been growing the most in terms of numbers and jobs and that kind of thing. So thank you again for joining me today. Would you please give the listeners a little bit of background about you? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And how did you get to studying law?
Okay. So I grew up in Billable, that's in Limpopo.
I've been there. I know where it is.
Yeah, everybody likes to go swimming there. But anyway, how my career came about is that I studied full-time at UP. And in my second year, due to personal reasons, my parents couldn't really afford to pay for the fees, and they told me I had to go work, right? So in Billable, it's a very small town. The only businesses you have is the normal retail stores, and one of the big businesses is a pharmacy, right? And in this pharmacy, I didn't have any qualifications, and I started to work there, and I started to work in the warehouse. So the warehouse, you were packing boxes, and it wasn't a client-facing type of position. So I was there for a couple of years, and then I got the opportunity now to study as a pharmacist assistant. So as a pharmacist assistant, that's when you dispense medications to patients, you assist patients with their chronic prescriptions, over the counter, whatever. And then when I was there, I got the opportunity to work with a lot of different projects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So working in a lot of different projects, you get exposed to a lot, especially the project management side. You get exposed to things like pricing. It's all these things that later on you think, oh, this is random information, I'll never use it, but you do use it eventually. Right? So I worked in that space close to 15 years. So I was in retail, I was in Korea, I was in all these spaces. And then in 2011, when my mother passed on, it was always her dream for me to finish my degree. So I decided, okay, let me finish this thing. And because it was part-time and it took forever for me to finish my degree, right? I finished it in 2018.
Wow.
Yes.
So through UNISA, I guess.
Through UNISA. So, when I say forever, my strategy was that during lunchtime, even an hour to study is something. So I used to sit in my car and I used to study.
Really?
Yes.
So you take your break
yes.
from your shift or working day
Yes.
then, okay.
Sit in the car and study. And then I didn't have any leave. All my leave was going towards writing now exams and
Wow.
so all that time it took forever, but I just told myself, you know what, just finish what you started. So I qualified 2018, I got admitted, and then I was like, what must I do? I have this degree, everybody's struggling to get into the legal field.
Yeah, that happens.
The roles for candidate attorneys are, few and far between.
On that note, actually, we were talking about it earlier. There's the Law Society's own website shows. Well, I'm pretty sure that's where we got it from. Must have been. There's close to 6,000 students graduating every year out of law schools in South Africa, and there's only 1,000 CA positions.
Wow. But you know what? The law is broad. I tell people all the time, the law is broad. There was one colleague of mine, I think they're in aviation law now, but their passion has always been flying. And I'm like, but you know what? As people, as people in the legal profession, we need to tell people you can actually use that in your favor. If you like flying, then do aviation law.
Yeah, I get it.
It's as simple as that. There's a story that I read once about, I think it was Steve Jobs, and he did calligraphy, and he did it because he liked it or something in varsity, right? And years later, the font for the MacBook, I think it was the MacBook, he used that experience he learned from the calligraphy later on in his business, right?
Yeah.
So there are so many options. The law is broad. I mean, technology has opened up everything. So now, I went on a bit of a tangent. But
no, that's cool. Because, I'm just trying to piece it together because this is such a wonderful journey and it's so inspiring to people listening because, we're already getting a picture of you, of someone who doesn't give up, which I love. People like that because I'm also one of them. You won't beat us. We don't give in.
No.
But it's a difficult time as well, and it will be something that other students would have faced in South Africa. Is the cost element.
Yes.
You're studying law. You're at University of Pretoria, UP, right? I'm guessing early 20s, maybe. Living life, student life. And then it's a difficult conversation. Your parents turn around and say, look, we can't afford to send you anymore.
Yeah.
And I guess you tried bursaries and you tried other things, but it just didn't come off. And then you were like, there would have been a moment in your young adult life where you have to turn around and go, okay, for now, I'm going to have to park this dream.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to start working.
Yeah.
And you were like, there's no room for ego there. It's like, I'm going to get onto it. And you found that pharmacy.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I was devastated because in your youth, right, you think that this is the only thing that I can do, right? You think if I don't make it as a lawyer, I'm going to die.
Yeah, I get it.
And life has a way of diverting you and putting the pieces together because you are forcing the pieces together so hard where you don't actually have to. And sometimes you direct it in another way, but you just have to see it just look back and see, okay, this is not the worst thing that can happen. Let me do this. And while I'm there, I'll see if there's another way, right?
Yeah.
But as a student, you have that thing that if I don't make it now, if I don't make it to that Bowman's or that ENS, I'm going to die. My parents are going to be so disappointed. But no, there are so many options. And you find that when you pursue those other options, it works out much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's typically, will go back to your point about aviation, it'll typically lead you down a path with something you actually genuinely have an interest in.
Yes,
so yes, it is, and it is something that I think a lot of students and those entering the workforce now are starting to realise. Hey, we're not all going to make it to ENS, and that's okay.
That's
because
okay.
I'm going to build a career in a different space,
and you find that your name is known more because you built your career in another space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So your mother passes sadly in 2011. I know from my own experience with my mother passing, it's never an easy time, and certainly the next few years, or in fact, I'm not sure if you ever get over it, to be honest.
No,
you don't. And and then you're working. I'm smiling because I'm just in awe of the effort that you put in. You know, over the years, you're studying through uni, so you're taking breaks out of, you know, like literally coming out of your lunch break with a sandwich and going, right, study, and then you get it.
Yes.
You got it. 2017,
yes,
you did it. Oh man, you must have had some party.
Yeah. and I had a child. I had a small child.
Oh,
I mean, now she's 16, but yeah.
Yeah, now she's practically an adult. Going, whatever, mum. She's
Yes.
right. She's out. She's gone.
Yes.
Making her own path. That's an amazing experience and very inspiring. You just kept at it.
Yes.
I guess, I mean, that says a lot about you as a person. It says a lot about your folks and the way that you got brought up. Someone who never gives up. But also, may I say, from one parent to another, what a great message to send to your kids. Like an amazing message. Well done. Like, never give in. Yeah.
Thanks.
And we
Thanks
learn
so
from
much.
our parents, right? You
Of
know, I learned
course.
the value of hard work from my dad.
Of
My
course.
dad was a postman on a bike for 25 years. I saw him get up at 4 o'clock every morning, go deliver deliver post. You know, come rain, sun, shine, snow, as we had in the UK, and get up and just do your day's work. And it's lessons like that you learn.
Yeah.
But you got
valuable.
it.
Yes.
And I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile at the moment. So I've got the pathway quite correct. And then, so there's a few, so you at that point, you're still in sort of clinical help desk, medical pharmacy kind of area,
Yes,
right?
yes. So what happened after that is that, I got admitted, and then I didn't know where to from here. I was like, okay, there were several factors that I had to consider, right? I'm in a full-time paying job. If I go and be a candidate attorney, and now I'm going to have to reduce significantly.
By about 10 times,
Yes,
probably. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And realistically, I have bills to pay.
Yeah.
I still have to pay, my apartment. I still have to pay for creche and all these things. So I was like, no, let me look at alternative, a pathway. And then I thought about what I could do. And then luckily, a colleague of mine, his wife is an advocate now at the bar. And he said, no, just go visit her and see what it's about. And, as a UNISA student, we don't get a lot of exposure to what's out there.
Well,
right?
of course, because also UNISA is correspondence, isn't it? So,
yes.
you're not...
I didn't even know what an advocate did. I didn't even know
It took me a while
what the profession was about. So I went to visit her, and I was blown away. I'm like, wow, this has got, a bit of the entrepreneurial element because you...
got to go out and get your own clients.
Yes. And I weighed up the cost, and I thought, okay, I can go without a salary for a year. And yes.
There was some hard work on that Excel spreadsheet.
Very hard work.
If we don't eat...
I can just push through that and I will do my pupillage and it will be fine. The irony actually is that I did do my pupillage and then the first year of practice was COVID and the courts were closed. So meaning I went a year without pay and then my first year of practice, I couldn't get
You couldn't even get into court.
Yes.
You are facing challenge after challenge after challenge.
That's it.
My word, this
That's
is amazing.
So,
I mean, you must have gone, really? Looking up to the sky, really? You want more tests for me?
no, I keep it moving, hey?
Yeah.
I keep it moving. I don't have a choice. You can't really think about that so much. You think, okay, how can I make this work in my favor? So basically, so it was a COVID year, but luckily I did get some work in now and then, drafting, whatever. I thought because of my background, I would get healthcare work. And that didn't happen. I was getting all sorts of matters. And
okay, I get you. Yeah, I can see why the path would be, okay, I'm going to specialize in healthcare work.
Exactly.
I've got a background in it. I know the terminology. I know, okay.
Yes. So what happens when you're counsel, people come to you and they give you everything. Yeah. So I was exposed to all this sort of work.
Looking through it going, is there a medical thing in here anywhere? No. Right.
So, but luckily I did get a few. And what I noticed is that a lot of the companies, they go through this litigation and they don't really have to, right? There's certain measures in place that they could have put up front that wouldn't lead them to the place of litigation. Business owners, they never want to listen to us. They just want to launch their business idea, right? They Google a contract and they think that they'll be fine.
I think there's about 1 million lawyers out there just nodding their head, going, yes, every single time. I mean, I've been guilty of it myself. You just go, oh, that'll do.
Yes.
And it isn't. You should have put it in place.
I actually have this friend, he's a business owner, and I'm telling him, no, are you sure this is in place? This is in place. He's like, no, you lawyers, you always want to slow us down. I'm like, you have to make sure.
It's going to be very expensive for you in future. If it's
yes. And with counsel fees, I mean, if it's a team of 2 counsel and your attorney, you pay your junior, you pay your senior, you pay your attorney. How much is that a day? Like 10,000 rand,
easily.
Yeah.
Before you've even done anything.
Yeah. So I saw that, okay, there are a lot of issues that could be mitigated, and how can I assist these clients? Because firstly, I want to get back into healthcare because I like that space. I like the thought that of making access, of making healthcare more accessible to people, right? How can I craft a business where I provide the service and I can do both law and both healthcare at the same time? So I wanted everything together, right? And I thought it would make sense for everything to be together.
And so, okay, so that's when in 2000 and, last year.
It was last year.
You launched.
I was during COVID, I was playing around with the idea, but it crystallized and I thought, you know what, let me do it this year. And one of the main reasons, right, is that I was following the health space and I saw the emergence of technology.
Yeah.
And I was excited about the emergence of technology. I had exposure to the use of tech when I was working in pharmacy, and I could see the difference that it can make to patients' lives if the companies just did everything correctly, right? So going back to when I was in healthcare, there were companies that had these products that in real time that could provide reports to the doctors, and the doctors could see what is happening with this patient and could be able to react. It would send alerts almost immediately, right? Your patient has cardiac arrest or whatever.
Wow.
So I knew from experience, you know what? These products make a difference. How can I make it more accessible to other people? How can I make it that, these providers, they have all the legalities taken care of, that they can now bring these products to market. So yeah, that's my thinking at that time.
Okay, and that's the kind of work that you're doing, is it?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
are you working specifically with a lot with health tech companies?
Yes, a lot.
And then and are they health tech companies that have come into South Africa, or are they ones that have been invented here by South Africans?
No, it's mostly coming in.
Okay.
There are a couple.
Because, there's like markets like Germany and places like that are just very advanced when it comes, and China and places like that when it comes to health.
There are startups in South Africa that
Good.
are doing very big things.
We need to support those.
Yes, absolutely.
So they're coming in, and let's take, for instance, the example of this. I'm loath to call it an app, but let's call it, for the sake of this conversation, some application, something that can give real time information to the surgeon or to the doctor or whatever it may be, but we want this to be with every doctor across South Africa.
Yes.
And you're going to be you're like the conduit between the company bringing it in and getting it out.
Yes.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's genuinely giving something back to the South African community, because and I've been to where you're from, Billable, beautiful part of the world, Limpopo. If anyone is out there that's listening hasn't been to Limpopo, please go. I went with my kids; they loved it. But there's areas around there that are, let's just say they're in need of investment, should we say?
Of course.
Yeah, and then so getting a health tech to these communities is really important.
Yeah.
That you and you're leading that charge and combining your two passions.
Yeah.
Well done to you.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, the fact that you can now have this app and you're able to literally at the press of a button have access to these services, that you don't have to go out, you don't have to spend your money. The doctor can track remotely what is going on with your health. That is very important. It's encouraging to know that at least people are getting the services out there, and these companies are trying to do it, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it is just making sure that they come to market in the right way. So that they don't then just face barrier after barrier after barrier, because I guess certainly within the health sector, there are lots of barriers and red tape and bureaucracy that you have to go through, rightly so, because obviously we're messing with people's health.
No, absolutely. In the right way. I like the way that you put it, because we're dealing with people's health, right? It can't be a gung-ho approach. So the clinical governance has to be up to scratch. It can't be a IT company launching a healthcare product.
It has to be a health business.
Yes. So in other words, there has to be a clinician there, because the framework that they work in, they have their protocols. They have to have everything in place. So you have to look at that. If they're dealing with a lot of data, there has to be some sort of data governance in place, right?
More so these days than ever with POPI Act and things like that.
Yes. Because you're dealing with people's health.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the POPI Act is really, really designed for that, the health industry, because you're dealing with everybody's entire data.
Yeah, because according to the United Nations, people's health data is actually the most sensitive data out there.
That's where I was going with it. Yeah, I'm thinking health data is the most important data that we hold on ourselves. So that cannot be dealt with badly.
Because think about it, if there's a data breach and your employer has, takes hold of your records, right? The risk or the threat to that data being used in a bad way is very real. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
yeah.
The mind boggles with ways that it could be used in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like I don't even want to start mentioning the things that are running through my head, but nefarious groups will use that data badly.
Of course. I think in was it last year? There was big data breaches in 3 major companies in the US, and that was millions and millions and millions of people's data. So what will happen is that the data, the data governance, the IT governance it will have a data management plan, right? So that will take care of, where's the data stored? Is it in the cloud? Who can access that data? Is it sold? Because data can be monetized, right?
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yes.
We all get those phone calls.
Yes. And in South Africa, if a company has your data and it's processed, then POPI comes into play, because as a South African citizen, and actually that is a very good thing because they're very strict. Our laws are very strict about our data.
Also, the process is actually very fair. I was watching that thing in the news recently. They fined one of the government branches, didn't they, who had not heeded the warnings. But the process seemed really fair. Yeah. It was like one warning, second warning, third warning, it's coming, fine. Like that, you had enough warnings to change your system and to not mess with the data. And I thought that was fine. But I know a lot about the POPI Act because obviously we have a recruitment business and we hold people's personal data. So we're constantly talking about it and making sure that we're ultimately just not holding people's data, certainly not using it badly, and getting people's permission if we need to use it for something. And if someone says don't market to me, just don't market to them. They don't want to hear from you. So but with health, I guess it's even. It's even
it's
more
even
dangerous.
Stricter. Yes, it's even stricter. So businesses have to put all these things in place, and they have to do it before, ideally, before they actually put those products into market.
I've got a question for you though.
Yes.
Now, obviously, as a business owner myself, I know what it takes to start a business, and I know there needs to be some calculated decisions made, but there also needs to maybe a bit of recklessness, maybe a bit of stupidity.
I was actually going to touch on something, but
and then you just go, I'm going to do it. Did you have that moment when you set up your firm? You just go, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. Did you have that moment?
I think I have that moment every day.
Oh, brilliant!
Because you just have to keep on moving. Things will not be ideal, right?
Yeah.
You just have to keep on moving. You have to take that risk, and just keep on moving. That's the only thing.
Own the future of recruitment today. Access a secured, anonymized global talent pool. Connect with qualified candidates through multiple private label databases. By creating your own Stintit, you can achieve the following. Step 1. Access your company dashboard by logging in. Step 2. Click Find Candidate to search for the ideal candidate. To begin, create a new position and fill in the necessary details. The system will search through multiple databases to find the ideal match for you. Step 3. Once the search is completed, you will instantly receive multiple 100% matches which have all been fully verified and KYC checked. Step 4. When the candidate chooses to opt in, you can view their skill set and experience. Only when you are satisfied, use your credit to unlock the candidate's full profile. Once unlocked, the profile remains unlocked for all future searches. What makes this system truly revolutionary is that when you search, the search will continue in all the different databases until a 100% match is found. Each database involved and the candidate share in the revenue, and that's how this circular revenue model and shared database benefit all parties involved.
I love that attitude, and I think that will resonate with a lot of listeners as well. Life's going to throw a lot of things at you, and you just got to keep going. And in your mind, obviously, I don't know you personally, but in your mind, it seems like you still kept that passion for the pharmacy and the medical side of things, and you were like, no, this is the right thing to be doing. To set up this business and be an affordable solution to the health tech industry, because the quicker and the better that you can help them get to market, the better off potentially millions of people will be.
I think also underlying my business is that it's about people, right? Because I know if,
Yes.
these businesses do not get the help they need, it will impact people. And if I can make a difference in that way, that's where the passion lies, is that you're actually helping people in that way. So that makes a big difference.
You are. And
Yeah.
I hope from this episode you get lots and lots of. Your LinkedIn's going to be inundated. Your links will be below. I hope people reach out to you and look to help and assist where they can, because you really are genuinely doing good for the community of South Africa. This is the whole purpose of having the Unicorn podcast, because people like you are out there doing wonderful things, and I want to help shine a light on that, because you are doing amazing work. And for you, it might just be a case of, I'm running my business and I'm doing it. And I know what it's like, because you get bogged down with the day-to-day and the minutiae of the day-to-day running the business. But maybe sometimes someone like me, this big, tall, white guy from England, can come along and go, do you know what? You got to remember, you're doing something amazing here.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. No, honestly, you really are. I think clearly, again, it's so fascinating for me, because people are my interest as well, and people's journeys and the difficulties they've had. Maybe not even difficulties, just the path that they've taken and the path that they've had, and how it shapes them as a leader and as a character and as a business person. Which again, just the brief introduction we've had to your background, clearly has shaped who you are, and the wonderful person and business person and lawyer and mother and friend and family member that you clearly are. But the industry is going through some changes at the moment. We all know that. Are you feeling that technological change? Are you feeling? Is it something you keep an eye on? The advent of AI, for instance, and do you think that will impact your business and yourself?
No, you know what? Since I work with a lot of tech people, I'm excited by the changes. And because I don't have the traditional background of being a lawyer, I can approach it with fresh eyes and embrace it more, right? Because if it can make things in my business easier, then why not? And if it can make it cheaper for the client, why not? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about tech. Although people be like, no, it's not as accurate as, having a human person, let's say, draft or, doing the necessary work. But at the end of the day, with deep machine learning and all that other tech, we're very much moving towards a space that we have to embrace the tech. We actually have no choice. If we don't embrace it, it's just going to overtake us.
And why would you not want to? I mean, that for me is like...
I think people are not wanting to, because they haven't thought about past having this legal career. If I embrace the tech, then what? Right? Because then what's going to happen is that they're going to have to relook at the business model. They're going to have to relook at the pricing model and reinvent themselves. And it's very difficult for legal people to make that shift. That's just based on my experience.
No, you're absolutely 100% accurate.
Yeah.
And it goes without saying, the bigger the firm, the more, they're like a tanker. They take time to change, and they will do, and they'll do it carefully and considered. But I think it's a question of how you embrace the technology, isn't it? I'm a big advocate for technology. If something can, that doesn't diminish my experience, and my knowledge. Your knowledge is in healthcare, the health industry and law. My knowledge is in management consulting and recruitment. Mm-hmm. I still know these things. Yes. I've got 20 odd years experience of this and life experience and whatever goes into that. But if something can bring me research quickly, it's also about how I, what's the word?
It can actually bolster what you already do, right?
It can, how I take that information and how I then adapt it to the problem in front of me it still needs me to do it.
Yes.
But I might be able to access more information quicker, or a contract or a type of an agreement quicker,
Yes.
using a Bard or a Chat GPT. It doesn't mean I'm just going to hand over Chat GPT's work. It just means that I'm going to go, right, now I can't think of the word. It's not implement I'm looking for. Someone will be listening to this shouting the word down the screen, but it's how you take that information and then adapt it for each problem that your client is facing.
Of course.
And I think from a legal perspective, actually, it bodes well for the should we say the rebirth almost of the technical lawyer, because again, I've been in this industry for 2 decades, and I've seen the growth of the, should we say, almost like the salesman lawyer, almost, who's had to go out and chase clients, and chasing clients and getting more clients and more work coming in has become very, very important part of the legal industry. And not a lot of lawyers want to do that. Yeah. And the technical side of things has taken a bit of a toll. I think this is going to be we're going to see the advent back of the technical lawyer being someone that is needed, and how to utilize the AI and the tech that comes forward. So I think it's also a very, very good, a very good thing, and it's an exciting time. It's an industry that hasn't changed very much for a very long time.
I think what has helped me a lot. I used to have an American friend, and they're like, no, South Africa's 5 years behind the rest of the world, the States and the UK. I used to get so mad, right? I used to get so angry. And then one of the first things I did on LinkedIn is actually follow more LinkedIn lawyers in the US and look at the trends as they're coming from there, right? So a lot of what they talk about is the pricing model, right? And then also how lawyers has to be business owners. They have to think of themselves more as business owners, because they have to market themselves, and we've never really thought of ourselves that way, right? Yeah, we've thought of ourselves, no, we just go into the office and that's it. They're like, no, you actually have to be a business person and go out and market and do all these things. And I'm like, what? And then I asked them about what is this thing that we can't do in South Africa? Where we can't actually go out and get clients off the street.
Touting for business.
Yes. And I'm like, but guys, what about touting? They're like, we tout unashamedly. It used to be a thing years ago.
Well,
but
you're allowed to do that in the US. That's why the US TV is always like, have you slipped and fallen at your work? And call this number. But in other parts, and especially throughout the continent here as well, there are some very tight. I know we've done work in Zambia and Ghana and places like that where touting rules are very tight. Yeah. There's one country in Africa that you can't even have a website.
Really?
I can't remember what it was. Yeah, because it's seen as you're externally advertising yourself. So that this will change eventually.
I think in South Africa it will change very soon.
I think so too. I think that there'll be a need for change in order to be able to drive. I think there'll be tight rules around that, because obviously you don't want the whole purpose of not being able to tout is that you can't take advantage of the more vulnerable elements of society, of the course. Eld and the poor and the sick, who often need help and then get ripped off. So I get it. But there will be very tight rules around that. But there are, you've touched on it a couple of times, and off camera we also talked about it. The biggest driver for change is not technology. The biggest driver for change has been the cost of law and the access to justice for the poorer communities, not just in South Africa, but globally. And they're the ones that are... So on the corporate side, it's the cost, pressure, drive down costs. And over here, it's access to justice. And it happens to be that technology is being invented that can be a solution for that. I talk to a lot of lawyers, especially at the bigger firms as well, some of whom are quite nervous about the revenue they generate, the money they make. And it doesn't mean your skill sets are diminished. Yeah. You maybe just move away from the billable hour. You know?
But I mean,
doesn't mean you have to charge any
let's be honest. I mean, in the profession, there are a couple of services that are quite standard and non-controversial that can actually, they don't have to be per hour.
Yeah.
Like an employment contract, it's more or less a standard document, right?
It can be downloaded from the internet. Yeah.
So,
but what I would like to do with that, with using that example, is I would like to come to a professional with my employment contracts and go, can I just use some of your time, pay for some of your time, just to make sure that these are right for my business?
Yes.
So you don't have to draft this because we've got that, but you can mark it, change it, make it relevant for me.
Yes.
And then,
of course.
And then I'm still, maybe I'm not paying him or her for 3 hours of their time, but they can charge me a set rate.
Yeah.
Which, maybe unbeknownst to me is the same price as 3 hours of their time. You never know.
Of course, yeah. No, I mean, obviously there will be a couple of novel contracts along the way in relation to employment. But what I'm saying is that it is pretty standard. So you can just adjust it here and there to, fit the needs of the business. But it's not something that you can bill hours and hours and hours for. It's not a document that you need to draft from scratch. Because it's pretty standard, right?
Well, I mentioned this, and I mentioned this lady quite a few times, so she's getting free advertising. But I had a chat with a lady called Nicoline Schoeman down in Cape Town. She runs Schoeman Law. She's a small to medium-sized law firm, but she embraces tech like you wouldn't believe. Her website is like, I sometimes wonder whether it's a law firm, but she's clearly embracing technology. And I spoke to her on the phone, and I said to her, why are you such an advocate of technology? And she said, Rob, I didn't go to law school and work this hard just to fill in templates.
Yes.
I want to be an advisor to my clients.
Yes.
So if there's technology out there that can make our solution better with my knowledge, I want it. I'm like, that's exactly the attitude that every lawyer should have.
Yeah.
It's I said this to someone from, I can't remember, so I'm not going to name the firm. I think it's definitely one of the big five. We were at a tech conference, and I said the same thing. I said, people in the industry shouldn't be scared of technology.
Yeah.
Because it's your industry. You are the legal professionals. You're the one who worked tirelessly to get that degree and did it, and you're the one running this business now. It's your industry. You decide how that technology is used.
Yeah.
And you could see the face was like, yeah, it is our industry. Actually, we've got to take that power back.
Yeah.
And decide how it's used.
And definitely, and also, going back to now the billable per hour thing, there are other ways around it. So, for example, how our business is set up is that you will find the standard contracts. They'll be very cheap because at the end of the day, it's standard contracts, right? And then what we do is that we do training. So if you don't have money for an attorney and you need to set up a company or corporate governance structure, whatever, you can send somebody from your team, right? So we'll have, let's say, 10 people, and you can send one person. That one person will get a manual. They can go back to the company and then teach everybody and say, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that, right? And then only in the event that you really need a consultant to step in, you can call us. So you see, that is when there's still is least costly. And then not to say that a consultant will be expensive, but only in the event that you need a consultant and say, okay, I've gone through your training, I've gone through your contracts, it's fine. I've gone through your training, but we still need assistance. That's when you can call us in and we can look at your business and say, okay, but you missed this, you missed that.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And if that's how you run your business, I'm going to implore everyone listening to this to call Mpho. And if you have a health tech, business or you're in that field, because that is exactly what people want to hear from their lawyers.
Yeah.
That's you're coming up already. I mean, we're talking about fictitious situation, but you're coming up with the best solution for them, cost-wise, everything.
Yes,
it's just a change in mindset when it comes to the pricing structure.
And especially, I mean, if you're a startup, Bootleg doesn't even describe it. Your finances are minus. They're not even zero.
No, I've been involved in a few. Yeah, it's minus.
You can't afford the thousands.
No.
So just spend 5,000 whatever, come for the day, 5,000 will be for 3 days, and then we take you through everything. You have the manual. You go back to your team and say, okay, this is how we do this. So they have a hard copy of everything. They can teach everybody else. And it's as simple as that. But it's not, I'll just say it's not doing legal work per se. It's things that we do that are not termed as legal work, right? So, for instance, if it comes to regulatory, how to register products, things like that. It's, yes.
Yeah.
It's skills that we can transfer to a lay person, so to speak. For example, if you have to set up a company, there's nothing wrong with showing somebody how can you set up a company. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You're not teaching them how to do legal work. So I just want to clear that up.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's what... And that's why you're probably being very successful now, and why you'll continue to be successful in the future. Because what you're doing, even now, is you're just talking about a solution that's going to benefit the client.
Yes, of
Whereas, that's a mindset change for many law firms who, and you kind of touched on it earlier when you were saying about lawyers having to be business partners and business owners.
Yeah.
They have to put themselves in the shoes of the client and go, what does this client need right now? What if I was them? What would I need?
Yeah,
I think it's a refreshing view that you have, and one that is shared by your colleagues in the alternative legal services space. Yeah, I mean the ones I've met. I've met a few. I've met the people at Cognia. I've met the people at Radiant. I've met the people at Exigent. I've met Justin at Lighthouse and people like that. Yeah. They have a similarly refreshing view, like as you have. It's very client-centric.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that law firms don't have that as well, but they've just got a few barriers and a few changes to go through and that kind of thing. But I think you sit in a space that is one of the fastest growing spaces in the legal sector. You've picked the right one. And, I certainly look forward to seeing the journey as well. But getting back to you and your journey, you, as many of the listeners know, we send out a bunch of questions beforehand that we ask you to answer. And really that's a case of helping you get into the mindset of, I did do that. And I did do that. And you put in about when you were working, one of the questions I ask is, do you have any notable moments in the workplace that really shaped you and who you are?
Yes.
And you've put a nice, you can tell us as much as you want about it, but you put in a nice example of where when you were in the pharmacy space or in the medical space, where you made a bit of a mistake in terms of people's data or the medicines.
It was a big mistake.
Okay. But and that really shaped you in terms of how to deal with a big problem. Yeah. Which obviously in law you have to face as well. I guess you learned a lot from that.
I did learn a lot from that, and it really comes in handy because what I find with a lot of people in tech people handle like large volumes, like the numbers are staggering, right? It's millions and millions of people. And they will say, okay, we have this program, and then they work into their figures a failure rate and say, okay, maybe 30% or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? That 30% is actually people, right? Yeah. So to actually, make them alive to the fact that it's people. And the reason why I have that thinking is due to my experience. So what happened is that now we had to send parcels to these patients, and the system was set up that a certain clinic had a certain number, but for some reason I switched it to another number, right? So instead of, let's say 3, I put in 31 or whatever. And about 50,000 patients now, their medication was going to the wrong location. And it was...
That's not a small amount.
No, I didn't say small. I said big. And
in my head, I'm going, 15. Okay.
And the thing is, it taught me a very valuable lesson because for them, I need my medication. If I don't take my blood pressure tablets or whatever, it is a problem, right?
No, I take blood pressure medicine, and my doctor often says, please don't miss a day.
Yeah.
Try not to. There's a reason you're taking it.
Yeah.
Just keep your blood pressure down.
So it just gave me that insight to say, no, it's not just 15,000 people. It's actually somebody behind that number, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I suppose, given that your experience in the medical space and now with tech and data as well, is that in many cases people are reduced to a data point. Yes. But actually, you're trying to bring the humanity back to that and say, no, this is a person sitting in a house in Billable in Limpopo, that this matters to them. Yeah. That's how you live your life, right? That's how you live your business. They're not data points, they're people.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. It was a product that was geared towards the older population, right? So it was a device. It wasn't an app. It was a device. And the problem that was there was a very fiddly device, right?
Old people don't want fiddly.
So, my role a lot of the time with the clients, it is the legal side, right? But there's also the aspect of the practicalities that have a bearing on the legal side, right? It has a bearing on the person's health and ultimately a bearing on the legal and saying, no, but aren't you being a tad bit negligent and have a disregard for this patient? So anyway, it was an app and it was very niggly, right? And the very question I asked is that, what about patients with arthritis? For instance, they won't be able to use that app, right? And say now they're not able to use that app, and then due to that, now there is some other health event that they experience that will have an impact on that patient and on the business. It could have an impact. It's a very real risk, right?
Yeah. You're exposed as a client.
Yes. So what I wanted to say is that, yes, I do look at the legalities, but I also look at the practicalities and say, okay, but in my experience, this will work, this will not work, and this is the reason why. So that's where also the background knowledge comes very handy, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's actually perfect because you've had all of those years' experience in industry.
Yes.
I suppose actually that's one of the reasons as well. I mean, slight sidebar, but is that it's always been very popular in the IP space to bring in people who've been in medicine or something because they've walked the walk, they've talked the talk. But not many lawyers or legal service professionals have had the experience that you've had. There's not many.
And not many IT people as well, right?
Yeah.
Just to bring in. And that's why the clinician in an IT business is quite, or in a health tech business, is quite important.
Oh, they're absolutely
to
key.
shine a light onto these small niggling, problems that they may have, and then that's where I come in and say, okay, yes, he's followed the protocol. That is quite correct, because when you go to court, there's a duty of care. Did the doctor follow the protocol? Was he negligent? All these things, they come into play.
Yeah, it's interesting because it sounds really simple, but many businesses do make the mistake. I've seen it before in many industries where they launch a platform for a specific industry, but they don't have anyone on the board in the invention of the app or the software that's actually done the job.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see lots and lots of platforms coming out for lawyers and they're more and more coming every day. You can tell very quickly the ones that haven't been invented by lawyers, because if they've got someone in there, like with your saying, with a clinician or something who's walked the walk, knows what's needed, there's a difference in the product, which is
absolutely,
great.
Absolutely.
So we're both in agreement that ALS is, and the area that your business is in, is going to continue to grow. We're going to see more automation. We're going to see lawyers embracing technology. Ultimately, the law is going to stay the same, and the delivery of that service is going to change somewhat. Yeah. Which is a good thing. It's always good to keep evolving and keep improving. But in terms of your plans for your future and for your business, where is it going? What are you? I mean, I've got it in front of me in terms of how you want to grow and who you want to grow with, but please, tell us where's your firm growing and what's around the corner for you.
Well, hopefully, it's to take our services not just to South Africa, but to other countries as well. We have done projects outside of South Africa, in the UK and in Kenya, but we want to grow, right? Especially in the African landscape, right? We very much want to grow into that space more. Yeah.
Yes, you're going to need some help with that. And in terms of, you also mentioned about empowering Black female practitioners as well.
Absolutely.
And you put there, it's not a BE thing.
Yes.
I'm a Black woman, and I know the struggles that many of them have faced.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I've been lucky enough to spend time on the podcast with other leaders like yourself, but with Nikita Lala and Tabello today and various other people, and there is always there's a lovely thread of, look, I've come from the same. I'm going to help. I'm going to help.
Yeah.
I'm going to help. I'm going to do it. And is that your mindset? I'm going to help. I've been there.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Especially if you're coming from a university like UNISA as well, right? You don't think that there are a lot of options out there for you, because
you must feel a bit detached. Do you feel a bit detached when you're at UNISA? Like, I know you're part of the UNISA, but without it being a classroom and does it make you feel detached? I don't know.
There is an element of being detached, right? But there's also that element of, nobody's going to give you what you need. You have to go out there and, hunt for whatever you need to make it work, if that makes sense. Because nobody's going to give you the tools. You really have to make it for yourself, and you really have to chart a way for yourself. And it teaches you as well that, you don't expect everything, that you see, okay, this is the best way. This is the best way forward. This is the solution. Let me go there. Because what happens a lot of the time is that if we are now having the traditional route, if we are derailed in one way or another, it's always the end of the world, right? But what I've found through UNISA is that because everything is not laid out for you, a lot of it you have to craft it yourself. It's funny. The other day, a student asked me, "Can you suggest a career path?" I'm thinking, do I even know what that is? Like, I don't know. I don't know what's a career path, because I've had to literally make my own career path, right?
Oh, you have. I mean, that's why I would implore people to reach out to you, because you created your own.
You have to. You have to.
The wonderful thing about you, and thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today, is that you can see that you've faced a lot of challenges, and you've had to go, okay, let's keep rolling with the punches. I'm going to keep going this way, but that wasn't a career path that you chose. It's what you made of it, and that's why you're so successful. I do think, that question that you've been asked by a student there, I've also been asked many times, and it's an impossible question to answer, because everybody's got their own journey ahead of them. I can lay out for you what your career paths might be. But you're going to have to work hard, and you're going to have to get there yourself. And actually, that's half the fun, isn't it? I mean, half the fun is like, where are we going? Where are we going next? Yeah,
but the thing is, inherently in creating your own path, there's always that fear, right? But if you have a set career path, you know, okay, from there I go there, right? There's no veering in between or alternative routes or anything like that. And I think a lot of people, that's what they've been taught, that you have to go a certain way, and then you have to go to certain law firms to be able to gain the credibility. You have to have certain qualifications to have the credibility. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that no, you have to just do what you want to do and craft it the way that you craft it. And the credibility, it will come. The knowledge will come as long as you are looking for it, as long as you're learning more about industries. Like, for example, I don't know anything about tech, right?
Yeah. Many of us don't.
Yes. But the fact that you want to know more, you know, that interest, it can be seen that now after a while you have that knowledge because it's just that you're pursuing this thing and you want to know more about this thing. It's not necessarily that you're an expert or you started out as an expert, if that makes sense.
This is perfect. This is brilliant advice for anyone listening as well. It really is, because I know what you're saying. There's things like you can't buy credibility. That comes with time. You can't buy experience and knowledge. That comes with time. You can't map out a career path for yourself because, even people who join big firms and big banks, you may get retrenched. Like, and then what? The career path is ended. You have to roll with the punches. You have to go with it, and it's much more important to have done something similar to what you're doing with is find a passion, find an area that you love, and it could be anything. Like it, and become the most knowledgeable in that space that you can be. Not the most knowledgeable person in that space ever, but the most knowledgeable you can be, so that you can show that you've got a genuine interest.
Yes. And you want to be there, right?
And you want to be there. And then you're doing something that you love. And then that replaces the big five or the international law firm in your CV, because it, and I had this conversation with someone the other day. I do some career coaching sometimes, and a very senior lawyer that wants to reinvent himself as a crypto lawyer, right? It's really big passionate interest. And I said, well, then great. You're not going to go back to university to learn anything. You're not going to write articles, write a blog, do a podcast, show, and then put it up on a LinkedIn profile. And then when anyone comes along, they'll see that your passion is there for that space. And for that, you don't need to go back to work for ENS or a Weber Wentz or whoever it may be to give you the credibility. You just know the topic. For me, it's careers. Of course. For me, it's careers, and that's what I love. And you touched on it earlier. It's behind the data point. And behind the careers, for me, is a person. Yes. Which is why I asked you kindly to come in to talk to me today, because I want to know more. I want to know about your journey, because that person is what we see on LinkedIn or we see out there on the website. But there's a person behind there. There's a mother. There's a professional. There's someone who's had to study in their car to pass their degree. So look, I want to wrap it up there, because I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think you are.
I'm so glad.
I think you are. It goes without saying. I think people will get a lot out of this. You are an inspiration. You might not know it. You might just brush it off and go, "Well, I was just doing what I had."
It's just vibes.
It's just vibes. It's just rolling with the punches. But not everyone has that ability to go, you know what? I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to study here. And the work that you're doing, the business that you're operating, fantastic. Please keep it going. Please keep giving back. And thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks so much.
Brilliant.
Thank you.